A.B.C.D. Art by Creative Design. Art education for all. Art education benefits all.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Talking the Tings. So yes, I am Michele, Dowrich, your moderator this afternoon, and I feel so, how should I put it, unworthy to be in the presence of the three fantastic pan professionals we have this afternoon. None other than Mr. Akini Gill, Miss Vanessa Headley, and Mr. Paul Massy. I have a little thing to tell you just now about Miss Vanessa Headley when I get to her. So I want to introduce to you our guests. Our first guest, Mr. Akini Gill. Akini graduated from the New York University in 2014 with a Master of Arts in Music Education. In 2019, he officially launched his book entitled From Behind the Bridge to the Impossible Dream. I know we need to hear the story there. His book highlights in detail a journey to the music journey during his school years with learning challenges. He received an award for his contribution to the musical culture of St. Francis Boys College, formerly Belmont Boys Secondary, in 2019. Mr. Gill is currently an instructor for music education at the Center for Education Programs in the University of Trinidad and Tobago. So I need you to get to your emoticons, your emojis, and send out a high five, a raise hand, a clap hand. Let us welcome Mr. Akini Gill.
Good afternoon, Dawn.
Hi, Akini, how are you?
I'm good.
It's great to have you. So I want to go ahead and introduce our other guests, Miss Vanessa Alexandra Headley. Now, just now, the director of A.B.C.D said that I taught the first CSEC music student at St. Joseph's Convent who went on to win the regional award, but she left out the name. That was Miss Vanessa Headley. So I have to thank Vanessa and her mother, Franca Hills Headley, for getting me into the CSEC music program head first. Welcome, Vanessa. Vanessa is known as the first and only person to win the National Panorama Competition, Small Bands, in 2018 as a composer, singer, and arranger. Vanessa has been a 28-year steel pan devotee, and she doesn't look any older than 25. As the first student of Golden Hands, founded by her mother, she did her first arrangement for the band at age 12. Repeated solo champion, Vanessa earned the CXC Caribbean Music Award in 2005. She was the first steel pan musician to be awarded an academic scholarship by Berklee College of Music, Boston, USA. Facilitating and performing at several international workshops, she has also adjudicated competitions in calypso, mass, and steel pan in Trinidad and the UK. Vanessa holds a BA in Honors in Musical Arts from UWI, like me, and an MA in Psychology for Musicians from the University of Sheffield in the UK. In 2020, she made history again as the first female to arrange for 3 different bands in 1 year in all conventional categories at the National Panorama. Let's hear it for Vanessa Headley.
Good afternoon, Miss Dowrich and everyone. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and it's so great to see you. Yes.
Yes, likewise.
Welcome. And
Thank you.
third guest this afternoon, Mr. Paul Massy, my colleague from CPDD. Paul Massy was fortunate enough to experience the Panyard with his father and sister as they all played for the Arima Golden Symphony and New Tones. Simultaneously, He played on national instrument in the Northeastern College Musical Ensemble and the steel band in Sangre Grande. He also graduated with his BA in Musical Arts from the University of the West Indies and had the most invaluable experience as the main character Kanga in the production Ogun Ian as in Pan, written by Roy Gibbons and directed by Louis McWilliams. He has been an educator for more than 20 years, was a regional coordinator in the Pan in the Classroom unit, and is now a curriculum officer in the visual and performing arts in the Ministry of Education in Trinidad and Tobago. And he serves as the external relations officer of the Pan in Schools Coordinating Council. He is presently on leave as he continues his studies at the doctoral level at Florida Atlantic University and is looking forward to his research that will focus on the socio-political and socio-cultural characteristics of the development of the steel pan in education. Wow, you see why I feel so unworthy to be among you guys? I only played pan for 2 years, but welcome Paul, welcome Vanessa, welcome Akini. I'm not seeing any emojis flying up to say hi, welcome to all our guests.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's great to have you. It's my pleasure to be in your esteemed company. So let's get the ball rolling. Our topic today is the Panyard as Center for Social Change. And I was trying to do some research today, and I found an article that Martin Daly wrote in September last year. And I'll take a few quotes from him. He says the value of investment in Pan and the Panyard goes way beyond the equally important goal of providing employment opportunities, because lots of people feel that the Panyard and Pan musicians are only good to go there and make a couple $100 when Carnival comes around. So they only think of the Panyard as Carnival time. I want to hear from each of you. Now, remember, hour is not long, guys. So we just cracking the surface, if not just touching the surface of this topic today. What has been your experience and what has been the highlights of the Panyard experience in your lives? How has being in the Panyard and being a pan musician changed you or made you today? Pat, let's go with Paul.
Hi, good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to begin by just a moment to recognize the master, Leroy Clark, and all those who would have contributed to our journey.
Thank you very much. I agree. Yes.
Yes, and first I want to also thank the organizers for this session, because when I saw the theme and I saw talking the thing, I realized that we were already giving value to our first language, and we were already giving value to the Panyard as a creative space that has added value to who we are today. And as was stated by the moderator, I had the fortunate experience of going to the Panyard with my dad and my sister. So there was that familial experience, and there was understanding of the community, because you had all these members of the community playing in Arima Golden Symphony or playing at New Tones. And at that point in time in New Tones, the arranger was none other than the late Clive Bradley. So for me, the highlight of my experiences in Pan is the process. Being in the Panyard, imagine having to take music from Clive Bradley. And Clive Bradley is giving you music, and he's telling this story. You have somebody like Clive Bradley next to your pan. He is giving you notes and telling you, when every section plays, he is revealing this story to you. And when I think about it now, I understand how creative we are. I imagine Clive Bradley as a storyteller with his music. And so so my experience in the Panyard has been a place that has always been inclusive. In that same band in Newtones, we had Amigo, and I know if you Google, you may see a story about Amigo, the visually impaired triple cello player who was in the Panyard every night, listening to the music and then playing the notes, and he played in a number of panoramas. So for me, the space, the Panyard, has always been an inclusive space when we think about race, when we think about class, when we think about religion, when we think about even nationality. The Panyard has always been the space to say in the community, all is welcome. You can come here. We are going to collaborate. We are going to listen together. There's a goal that we are hoping to achieve. And because of all those experiences, it also, there was a transfer of what we were doing in the Panyard in the community.
Great. Thank you so much, Paula. Coming back at you. Vanessa, let's hear it, because the Panyard was your home. Tell me what that did for you and maybe the members of the band of Golden Hands.
So quite literally, the Panyard is my home. Good afternoon again, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Well, for me, you know, similarly to Paul, my first exposure to the Panyard came through my family, specifically my mom, as most of you may know. And Golden Hands started in our living room. But at that point, you know, Golden Hands was not considered your typical Panyard, of course. Um, Mom was teaching me and my cousins and my, you know, best friends that I grew up with to play the instrument. And it was really in a more controlled and structured environment. But one of my fondest memories is when she took me to Panasonic Connection here in San Fernando. That was my first real Panyard experience, and my first panorama subsequently. And I just remember really just being kind of awestruck by the way that everything functioned in orderly chaos, if I could say, in the Panyard. I was pretty young. I was maybe 11, but there was so much to soak in every night. And the thing is, everybody had a role and function, and everyone in the space knew what was required of them to make the night's rehearsal a success. And that has always stayed with me because there was no formal structure to how sessions or rehearsals were to be conducted, but somehow everyone came together and accomplished what now in hindsight, with all the understanding I have of what was taking place behind the scenes and in the spotlight, you know, all of what went into really making that a success. And some of that, well, has been translated into Golden Hands, my home band. But before I get to that, I must mention, even going into that space at that time was challenging because, you know, everybody wasn't 100% on my mom's side for taking me, her one girl child, into the Panyard to play amongst, you know,
Big hardback men.
right, yeah, practically, basically. But you know, she stayed her course, and I am so grateful for that opportunity. It really broke a lot of boundaries and opened up the way for subsequently the members of Golden Hands. So we took a lot of the things that we would have learned from our time at Panasonic Connection and later on my time at Hatters and so on, and incorporated it into what we now know as Golden Hands. However, we had to do a lot of tweaking because our focus is young people between the ages of 3 and 30. So we had to create the Panyard experience, as we dubbed it, in our little space here and make it I don't like to use the word kid, so I said children, child friendly, and also parent friendly, because we know how parents feel about even today, believe it or not, about their children in a space once it's labeled Panyard. And I think so many people now are really making headway as far as getting rid of the stigma attached to the word Panyard. Um, it really, Panyards have always been a space to social change, but they have become more recognized as such simply because, uh, people have been able to take from this space what they think what benefits them most, and there's so much to gain from being in uh, such a rich cultural space. So just to quickly answer your question in no time about Golden Hands, a little more. We have had actually hosted the Panyard experience as an occasion for people to come in, both locals and people from outside of Trinidad, and get the experience of being in this space. Again, I'm trying to say in a controlled, structured way, because we all know what a Panyard is. You don't go there
Yes, we do.
with, right. So we have had that, and everything and everyone that goes into making it a success, the tuners, the drill master, everybody, the lady who cooking in the night, there's so much apart from the players and the arrangers. And needless to say, it has impacted many, many lives over the years, just
Great.
that experience.
So I'm coming back to you because I want to talk
Yes.
about this. We have a break coming up shortly. Akini, let's get your 2 words in. Tell me about the highlight of the Panyard experience in your life.
Okay, good afternoon to all. Growing up, from the age 5, 6, my dad will take me to Desperado's Steel Orchestra. He will take me to Juve morning. I will be on top of his neck and listening to the steel band. So, I was involved in the steel band as a listener from very early, and I was always motivated with the experience of seeing people enjoying themselves, seeing different aspects of the steel band, going into the Panyard, seeing that there are so many different ways and different roles for different people. It's almost like anybody can be in the Panyard, even the guy who picking up the bottles to go and sell to the arranger. So the Panyard has a role for every single person in our society. But I got into playing the pan at Trinity All Generation School of the Arts, and there I eventually learned to play the pan. I had challenges at first, and again, the people involved in the Panyard always encourage you. They always encourage you to try and don't give up and those sort of things. So it was very helpful to be around people who have that Panyard experience. And Mr. Massy, I'm referred to the guy who was visually impaired in Newton's. So it shows very early how even a brilliant arranger like Clark Bradley welcomed someone who is visually impaired to even play on a final night. So that is very significant to show that the environment even welcome those who may have challenges. So I started to play there, and then eventually I played with Invader Seal Orchestra. And when I came off the stage, I got a little interview. So, you know, I felt a little good first time, you know, so that's what I was saying. But the Panyard and the steel band is really motivational. It's almost played a very major part in my school years. It really brought out, you know, the best of me, you know, being in the Panyard and being around people who involved in the band.
Great, thank you, Akini. So now we must go to break. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
We're on a mission to encourage everyone to dream, create, and achieve. We believe.
To some more uplifting news now. From behind the bridge to the impossible dream, that's what Akini Gill achieved and put into a book that was published today.
As Ryan Bechu and camerawoman Crystal James tell us, suffering from both dyslexia and dyspraxia, Gill faced much more than learning disabilities.
At 33, he's climbed and conquered mountains the average person hasn't.
This book is a story about a boy who could neither read nor write. A boy who suffered from dyslexia and dyspraxia. And the book is authored by the same boy. You won't find it in the fiction section because it is the real-life story of Akini Gill. Set in Laventille in the early 1990s, his first days at school would reveal the struggles he would face for the rest of his life.
Some of my classmates will mock me the way I speak. Some teachers did not correct my work. They didn't understand. They were calling my mom.
With dyslexia, he saw different words. Dyspraxia meant he couldn't hold the pen properly, so he wrote outside of the lines and his letters were of different sizes. Teachers refused to correct his work. The lowest blow, however, came at a parents' day, when a teacher embarrassed his mother.
To my mother, that it would have been better if she go and plant peas in Tobago than have me.
But she refused to believe her son couldn't learn. And despite changing his schools several times, she had the same result.
Many days I left school and I did not feel to go back because I felt unwelcome.
With dyspraxia, he couldn't properly hold the pan sticks, so the music teacher gave him the shak-shak to play instead. It would take him 7 years to just learn to hold the pan sticks properly.
It was here Gill's dream of being a music teacher was born. At a very young age, his father would bring him to the Panyard to listen to desperados practice. He fell in love with the steel pan and decided he wanted to learn to play it.
And it was difficult because I was seeing a lot of my peers moving on and I was always behind.
The turning point came when his mother saw an interview with Alta on TV. A call to founder Paula Lucy Smith changed everything. They got him speech therapy and sent him to Ishi's Learning Center, a school specifically for learning disabilities. It was the foundation he would build his life on, going on to pass high school, study a degree in musical arts at UWI, then accepted at New York University for a master's in musical education. However, Trinidad and Tobago policy disallows learning disabled students from scholarships abroad.
Some people will, and I have it in my book, will believe that it was a waste of taxpayers' money to send me.
It went all the way to Parliament in 2011 before the decision was reversed. 2 years later, he came home and fulfilled his dream of becoming a teacher, working at St. Margaret's and Chaguanas Government Primary. But the challenges never stopped.
I remember going and writing on the board, and the students were laughing because I was writing every letter the same side. So I had to learn how to write on the board.
On Tuesday, he launched his book, From Behind the Bridge to the Impossible Dream.
The book is dedicated to my mom, Elizabeth Ann Sinclair. I probably got the determination from her because she believed, and eventually I believe too. So she is the belly of the story.
are back. We are back at the ABC booth where we are talking about the Panyard as the Center for Social Change. Akini, that was such a fantastic story. And on behalf of teachers everywhere, I personally would like to apologize for what that teacher did to you. I'm really, really sorry.
Thank you.
But let's move on. You know, one of you just mentioned the Panyard stigma. And if we delve into the stigmas behind the Panyard or of the Panyard, we will want to bring up all the negatives that are associated with the Panyard. But we are educators. We know better. So let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about the benefits. What do you see as the benefits of the Panyard experience, whether from the toddler to the old 90-year-old man who's still knocking the pan or knocking the iron in the engine room? Let's start with Vanessa. And you would be able to talk about not just your experience, but the children that you all have in Golden Hands, because you're one of the few, if not the only real youth steel band that's focused only on youths, right? What do you see as the benefits of the Panyard experience?
Yeah, okay. So I'll focus on Golden Hands for this, just for the sake of time. The Panyard is a space where the playing field is level. At least here at Golden Hands, everyone is treated equally, no matter what age. You know, everyone has a space to be themselves and also a space to grow, and with the understanding that no one is invincible, no one is better than anyone else, and you can be yourself. And you could be the best version of yourself. You're allowed to be the best version of yourself. Yeah, you're at home. You could be yourself. And I think everybody here could relate to that. You walk in a Panyard and you don't have to put on any airs. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to. You could just find somebody and have a conversation. You could just sit back and relax to the music if you want. You could go and talk to the arranger. You could approach the arranger without feeling any trepidation. And there's always something to learn. So here, again, at Golden Hands, we try to foster that environment where, you know, from the youngest to the oldest, they feel a part of, and they feel important, and they feel heard, and they feel loved, and they feel as though somebody cares enough to give them a space to express and grow. And we are here as educators to nurture them.
Thank you very much. Paul?
I want to thank Vanessa for that contribution, because she's so right. She's linking what I said before, that the Panyard has always, and I want to say this, if I could say it louder, the Panyard has always, the people in the Panyard has always led. It has been the space that has always been inclusive, no matter of class, no matter of race, no matter nationality, no matter geography. The Panyard has always been that all-inclusive space for everybody to come and collaborate, for everybody to listen to each other. If you think about the music as well, and I want to link what I'm going to say with what you showed a short while ago with Akini. There's a discipline that you find in the Panyard, especially leading to a panorama that you wouldn't find anywhere else. You could have 120 players listening to just one person, and that one person says, at this point in time, this group of players are taking the lead. You have to follow. There are some dispositions being learned there that I have always said it, Panyard has always been this organic space, our first form of socialization. I don't know if I ever said this to Akini, and Akini, I really want to say, congratulations to you. And that is why, even being on this panel, I said, I'm humbled to be in the presence of Akini and Vanessa. Akini, I was one of the regional coordinators, and Akini was one of my instructors. And I intentionally selected Akini for Shoguana's government primary. And if you know Shoguana's, the top 2 primary schools and with SEA results was Shoguana's government primary and Montrose government. And I would be the one visiting those schools. And every time I visited Shoguana's government, the principal will say, Akini is always punctual. Akini is always ready to work. Akini has passion for the instrument. And this is the Akini Gill that I knew since then, and that's why I selected him to be at Shoguana's government. So I'm saying that to say to us, those experiences in the Panyard that showed us, as Vanessa just said, that we are all the same at the end of the day. We're here to make sure we learn the music. We're trying to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible. And we were able to transfer those skills into the formal education system.
Thank you very much, Paul. Wonderful. And Akini, what are the benefits that you see coming out of it? I mean, of course, you can speak from your own personal experience, yes, and not just the benefits to individual, but maybe community as well.
Yes, there are a lot of benefits in the Panyard, and the Panyard has a major role to play with citizens who have challenges and can show them that they can do well. But what I admire about the Panyard now in the 21st century, that still maybe 20 years ago, people saw people in the Panyard as just pan players. But now you're seeing a lot of people are passing through the Panyard and becoming educators. They are moving way beyond the Panyard. They're really getting that literacy side on, even within the Panyard. But they're going much, much further than just around the Panyard compared to, you mentioned, elderly people who may have spent 30, 40 years in the rhythm section. Now you have players who will move into different bands, who's composing, who are arranging, who's winning scholarships. So the Panyard itself has evolved from the 80s. It has improved a lot. And I think we need to take note of that, how the Panyard has really lifted our young people, how it has really carried our young people to different parts of the world and really show that they can do well as young people and they can do much more than just waiting for Panorama to play and come back the other year. They have shown that they can have a structure throughout the year with the band and with the involvement of the Panyard.
Great. Now, as I said, our hour flies by really fast. We have one more scheduled break. But before we go to the break, I'm going to leave you with this thought, because this is where our conversation goes next. How, now that we know how, and I mean, many people do know, how the Panyards have changed lives. And as Akini has put it, it's no longer just a Panyard carnival musician or pan player. It's now educators. It's now being transformed, right? Not just of mind, but of lives. How do we now get that to the powers that be, the NGOs, the government, the corporate citizens? How do we get that message out there so that we can have a bigger buy-in, not just of the people who are accustomed being in the Panyard, but of everybody, and I dare say the whole country? So we're going to go to a break now and be coming back with that as a tidbit. we are back. PAN, the Panyard as the Center for Social Change, brought to you by A.B.C.D, Art by Creative Design. Remember to follow them on Instagram and Facebook. So we are continuing our discussion with Akini, Gill, Vanessa, Headley, and Paul Massy. And I know we have quite an audience today. Remember, guys, you may put your questions or comments in the chat. So we are now into our final 10 minutes of discussion. And the food for thought before we went to our break was, how do we get buy-in to transform our panyards? How are we going to get the public and private organizations, the NGOs, to help foster sustainable models to develop these communal spaces? Vanessa, you know, you have had music in the class, music in the community. I can't remember the full term. Put on the, was it the Ministry of Culture? The name has changed so much over the years.
Music schools in the community.
Right,
yes.
music schools in the community. We have had PAN in the classroom, and I mean, Mr. Massy has been part of that, as well as Akini. We have the MMPU in the Ministry of Education, the Multicultural Music Program Unit. We have our National Steel Symphony Orchestra. We can now boast that we have a National Steel Orchestra belonging to Trinidad and Tobago. How do we get buy-in from the rest of corporate and governmental Trinidad and Tobago to help transform these communal spaces? And of course, the panyards are not just the panyards, but because we have PAN in the classrooms, or we have PAN in our classrooms, that is also another type of panyard space. How do we get buy-in? Let's start with Paul. How do we make the powers that be hear us?
First, thanks, Michele, and thank you again to A.B.C.D for the space. The first thing I want to say is what you have identified. We have been doing an excellent job, even a space like this, ensuring that our NGOs and private organizations know about the successes of PANIS and other persons who are affiliated with the steel band movement. And you just mentioned the NSSO. We also had the PAN in the classroom unit, now the MMPU. I am the ERO for PAN in Schools Coordinating Council, and one of the things that we did was we partnered with BPTT. We also partnered with Shell. We also partnered with the National Training Agency, and that's why we now have CVQ PAN manufacturing in schools. So schools can now select CVQ PAN manufacturing. So I want to acknowledge how far we have reached, and we still have plenty to go, but we are going in the right direction. So I think once we continue to create these spaces, once we continue to value ourselves, that we are, as Akini has rightly said, education for us is not a noun. I want to say this again, education for us is not a noun, education is a verb. There's a trajectory for all of us. I'm seeing a co-elite here. I'm seeing Dr. Mia Benjamin, I forgot your Gordon. All of us, education has been a verb, and once we continue to go in these spaces, once we continue to go and share our stories, Akini has shared a story, I think that what we need to do is continue to support each other. So every single PAN side should have a copy of Akini Gill's book. That is what we need to do. We need to continue to support each other and ensure that the messages, that the stories are being heard everywhere.
Thank you very much. Akini.
Yes. As Mr. Massy said, I must recognize that, we must all recognize that we have really come a long way compared to where we were at years ago with the different ideas of those things. I myself at UTT, where I teach the general music education course I have a field trip every semester, and I have taken them to school panorama. I've taken them to the National Steel Symphony. I have taken them to Miss Vanessa band class, and 80% of them who have never been involved in the steel band appreciated more after, when they really go and they sit and they listen. The NGOs, the government, to me, they support us, but in my view, they still see it as sponsorship. They still see it as just a matter of getting the pants tuned, getting the jersey, that sort of thing. How do we really get them to understand much more? But we have to remember that we still have a large population, a percentage of our population, who are elderly and who know Panama, how they know it. So they think that the youth may want to take away what they know the typical Panama should be. Because if you go on the drag Panama night, those elderly can tell you who should win and who should not win. And they will tell you, well, I don't need to know what is that semi-brief or minimum. So we have to find a way to balance all of that, because we don't want them to feel that, we are really going to take away what they know Panorama is supposed to be. They just know that it's Panorama is around Carnival time, and they want to hear the band and they have to sing a certain way. So we have to come up with some ideas, but we have to keep continuing, like opportunities like this, and keep encouraging them to keep on believing in what our goals are.
Thank you very much. I agree with you all 100%. Vanessa.
Yes, my whole thing is we all need to be advocates for the instrument. It's our national instrument. And I couldn't help but think about your visit with your students, Mr. Gill, to Golden Hands. I mean, the majority of them, they probably never really had that kind of hands-on with the instrument, and I was so happy to learn that they did appreciate it so much more after. And that's what we as the steel pan musicians and educators all have to do. We have to go invite our friends and people who, they kind of skeptical about the Panyard space and about the instrument, as Mr. Gill said, a large percentage of the population, they still think of the pan as noise. Even here in Trinidad and Tobago, it's our national instrument. So we have to draw them in. We have to be advocates for the instrument. We have to speak about it, go out to them and pull them into these spaces. And as far as corporate Trinidad and Tobago, well, lead by example is my thing, because anybody who's willing to shell out some money, they want to know what you bring into the table. And let's be real, in our steel pan community, we could work on that. We could work on proving ourselves a little more, showing that we are taking initiative, we're proactive, we have ideas from within our community, and bring something to the table so that people will want to invest in us. They will be seeking out steel pan musicians and bands to assist, rather than the other way around, where we are always asking for some kind of financial assistance. I think we have enough within our panyards and our communities to come up with some really exceptional ideas and proposals and present them. And finally, get out of the whole panorama is everything mentality. There's so much more we could be doing throughout the year to market the instrument and to raise awareness right here at home and obviously abroad about the steel pan and its potential outside of the panorama context and the panorama zone. And I'm not in any way negating the importance of panorama, but there's so much more. I think we're limiting the instrument by just focusing on panorama all the time. So let's be advocates for the instrument.
Well, Vanessa, those are wonderful closing remarks from you. I don't know if Akini or Paul has any other similar remarks they would like to make right now as we begin our wrap-up session.
Oh, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank this platform for having this wonderful discussion. And I want to wish everybody all the best and take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Akini. It's such a wonderful pleasure to have you with us. Paul?
Yes, I just want to endorse what was just said by Vanessa as well, that we have to be advocates, we have to believe in ourselves, we have to understand that we are continuing our legacy. I think sometimes we forget who assisted us and why we are where we are today, and understanding that somebody has given us a battle for us to continue the race. So we have to be advocates, we have to continue to elevate, we have to continue to collaborate. I always say collaboration over competition. And if we spend more time collaborating, we will get more done, we will get more buy-in, and the focus will be on education that is going to take us from one place to another, rather than just being stagnant wherever we are. And I also want to thank A.B.C.D for the space. Well done, Michele. As I said, when I got invited, I said, this is a progressive space. Talk the things, and also understanding that the Panyard has always been a space for social change. So, and thank you to everyone who have participated and the audience that we have today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Akini. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking things, or talking the things. So with this conversation, the Panyard as the Center for Social Change, we have admitted that we have come a very long way from way back in the 50s and in the 60s, but we've got to keep the conversation going. And if I can quote Paul, education is not a noun, it is a verb. We have to keep doing. We all understand that being in the Panyard is an education and it continues to educate every one of us. It's a place of inclusivity. It's a place to be safe. It's a place to be yourselves. It is one place where the playing field is definitely level. And we must say thanks to all our educational institutions, the Ministry of Education, the PANs that are in the primary school with all the tutors, the teachers that continue to support, and the principals. What about our tertiary educational institutions? Dr. Mia Gormandi Benjamin, Mr. Jessel Murray, Satanan Sharma, Mr. Gibson, USC, UTT, UWI, all the acronyms. We have to say thank you to all of these institutions who have embraced the PAN as our national instrument and have just been running with it. We have so many more educators out there now in the steel pan, and many of our pan men have gone on to be excellent professional musicians, not just at home, but abroad. I think in every country where there's a steel pan, you're going to find a Trini pan man. So we're talking the thing. We want to say thank you to A.B.C.D, Art by Creative Design, who have collaborated this week with the Caribbean Association of Principals of Secondary Schools in their 20th Biennial Conference that's being hosted in Trinidad and Tobago. Their theme, Breaking Barriers, Transitioning Beyond the Norm. And we are continuing to break barriers. A.B.C.D, Art Education for All. Arts education benefits all, you know? So we want to thank Yana and her team at A.B.C.D. I want to thank Mr. Paul Massy, Ms. Vanessa Alexandra Headley, and Mr. Akini Gill, fabulous professional musicians who are studying, who have taken the pan so far, and God knows we will continue to hear about you, see you, and hear your music. And more importantly, create really wonderful spaces for our young and old alike as they continue to take part in the national instrument of Trinidad and Tobago. I am Michele Dowrich, your moderator today, saying it was quite a pleasure. I hand you back over to A.B.C.D. Iana. Thank you.
Art by Creative Design. Art education for all. Art education benefits all.